Good morning. How are we doing? Let's have a look. All right, Josh, you're eating a big muffin. Brilliant. And while driving. Cool. Get you through your journey. Oh, while drinking. Very good. What else have we got? Hell yeah. Get this the right size. There we go. Hell yeah. I'm travelling right now for a holiday. Can only stay on for a very short time, but I'm here for a little bit. Right, Enzo, we were going to have a look at your studio today, but I'm going to postpone it. I should have told you earlier, actually. We can do it another time. Hey, trying to get this hair right with headphones. Ridiculous. All right. So I can move on. I'll just flip the weeks around. That's what I'll do. Because today we're going to do some music production stuff. That's what we're going to do. Brilliant. So, right, so there's you and another guy called Hoyt, and you both got studio pictures. So if there's anybody else who wants to send me some studio pictures, emails in the description. Send me a picture of your studio. Right. Oh, sorry. I was just going to tell you that we were going to do, the studio environment today. So what I was going to do was just basically get the picture of your studio and then ask you a few questions about it and just talk about your studio. And then maybe possibly discuss, like, if you were to make any improvements on it, what would you do? So that's kind of what I was going to do. And there was two of you. There was you and somebody else. So that was the idea. So music production stuff, because we're talking about... So last week we talked about environment, didn't we? So remember, we talked about environment, and we talked about, how we can make our environment better for our music making purposes. Right, okay. We can still do it now. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Should we try and do it now? I'll do you this week, and then we've got Hoyt for next week, as you're here. So let's have a look. Where is it? Find a... Right, let me have a look. Downloads. Right, that's a good one. All right. Okay, well, we'll do this now. So here we go. All right, yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Right, so we're going to do it now. I've got the picture here. And you could make adjustments so before and after. You can lurk, Josh. Hi, Galactic, how you doing? Good. Don't be nervous. Right, here we go. Boom. We have Enzo's studio. Look at that. That's amazing. Wow. There is a lot going on there, isn't there, Enzo? I think. There's quite, I mean, quite a lot. So, but lots of cool gear, you know, it's a proper, you know, there's stuff going on there, isn't there? So, Enzo, how do you find that environment? How do you find working in that environment at the minute? You know, do you find it productive? Is there continuously things that sort of you don't use in that studio, or the things that you would want to use in that studio, but they aren't close enough to you or not at hand? You send two more. Yeah, I've got those as well. I just thought this was a good sort of overall view. Let's have a look at the other ones. There's another one. So that's a bit tidier, isn't it? Oh, there we go. That's a panoramic. So you're sort of using tables as stands, really. Very good. Quite like that one. So, so you don't like your desk? Okay, well, I mean, the desk's a very important thing. I mean, you've got what don't you like about the desk? So for me, this is like what, you know, hyperplexity. For me, what would concern me is basically the amount of wires that are about the place, and like how many foot controllers you've actually got, and do you actually need them all? So it's a lot of this is to do with streamlining, because how simple can you actually make your setup? That's the thing. And like, how easy is it for you to like make ideas? I mean, there's a lot of things to actually switch on, isn't there? So I kind of get the bit where you've got your computer with the two speakers. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the other thing, you've got like a quad cortex. What are the other two pedals on the floor? Fractal on the X3. Wow. So you've got Fractal, X3, and Quad Cortex. Do you need all of them? Alright, cool, that's alright. Track guitar MIDI. GM800, I see. Yeah, it's just like a lot, tons of stuff in it. So I think, yeah, like getting all the stuff tidy, getting all of the stuff that you don't use out of the way. But I see what you mean about your desk. I'm wondering if you'd be better off, because it's like you see the desk where you've got just the keyboard on it. I'm wondering if you're better off using that desk, right? And having your speakers by either side on the stands, and then using that smaller desk that you've got the small keyboard on. I'm wondering if you should use that one as your main keyboard stand. And then what you could do is you could have basically the other stand with the push on. You could have the push in the center, and then you could have basically the table that's on your right hand side. That could have your small keyboard on if you're using that. What about that? That would be pretty cool. I'm not sure about having all of your stuff in the corner of the room as well. Like you should, like studio wise, you should always have your studio set up lengthways if you can. So lengthways in the room. I don't know, is your room a complete box, or is it more of an oblong shape? But you want to be, basically, if it's an oblong shape, you want to be on the smaller wall as well and flat to it, rather than being at an angle, because that'll be just a massive bass trap. And then the other thing you've got is you've got speakers pushed right up against the wall. So what that'll do is, because there's no air behind the speaker, I'll imagine that it'll just produce a huge amount of bass out of that. So I think like the whole studio has to rotate round. So like your main desk's maybe in front of that, the picture of the tree. And then you've got your speakers either side, and that's the center. And then use the lighter table over here. So while that's yeah, while that's an idea, Enzo might be used to using a lot of this equipment. That's the thing, you know. But yes, I mean, basically, I would be just down to, like what Mech's saying, I'd be literally just down to the computer, speakers, one keyboard, push, and I probably wouldn't use any of the stuff on the floor. I'd be using software only for music creation, definitely. I mean, I had a Quad Cortex, and it was just never used, because basically the hassle of switching it on, putting it in, recording to the computer just didn't make any sense. When you can just get stuff that sounds better straight in the box, and you can record, and you can easily edit your guitars, and you can change your mind, and you can actually change the sound of your guitars upstream in your mix, which is a real, positive thing. For example, I'll give you a good example. Unless you start then doing the dry signal from the Quad Cortex and your AXA freeze, like the problem that you have is you have to either completely re-record, or you have to kind of start tracking with and keeping all the dry signals, like the direct signals as well, which is just a hassle, I think. It's like, so I always want to avoid that musical administration all the time. So, I mean, that's why I'm like software only, because there isn't any musical administration. As soon as you start plugging stuff in, you kind of got that organizational thing going on. Right. I mean, you can never have too many guitars, can you, really? I mean, I can't. But if they're a cognitive load and you're not using them, put them in storage or sell. You see, that's the thing, because you might have a lot of stuff here, right? And so that you just don't need and you could sell, you know? I mean, and like get a better computer or whatever. There's so much more you can do in a computer. I mean, I would always just have the computer as the center, not bother with any guitar stuff, and use controllers. It's like so much better, you know. The tree's good, isn't it? But actually, there's like loads of like cool stuff in the studio. So Enzo, right? Let's just go from the top here, right? So we'll work on the computer bit. So you've got your computer, you've got your speakers, right? Do you think it would be a good idea? What I've just said is to, because obviously the sound's the important thing, of moving that your your main workstation where the two pedals are, the AXA 3s are, moving that so it's against the wall, and then moving the speakers or moving slightly out from the wall so the speakers are out from the wall. Yeah, you got the, yeah, you know, Moogs are great. So what about that, Enzo? Just moving the computer so it's flat on the wall rather than being in the corner. Because corners are just bass traps. That just can't be good. And then swapping the tables. Tidying the cables, getting rid of all the stuff that you don't, you know, that are in the way. Yeah, Venus Theory is very good. It's good this looking at people's studios. Oh, right. Still, you could still set up in front of the window, couldn't you? I know, like Thomas's studio's in front of a window. I've always had like my stuff. So, what about the other wall? Has that got a window on as well, where the lighter desk is? Mm. I mean, either way, the speakers you're monitoring. So you've got your speakers on an apex of 60 degrees, which is, I mean, providing your head's leaned right into the computer, then that's all right. But I think it needs to come round onto one of these walls and widen them out. Yeah, minimal's like the way to go, isn't it? All right, so I'll just go through what I think, right? And then you just tell me if this is wrong, Enzo, or if you're happy with this. So moving the computer, your main kind of place where you do all your work, moving that flat onto a wall. Having your speakers, well, you don't want your speakers right up to a wall, so you'll have to move it out a little bit. Having your speakers either side on an apex of 60 degrees away from the wall, so they're not like vibrating off the wall, because what you'll find is when speakers are pushed onto a wall, they just produce a ton of bass. So they need to have a little bit of air around them. So that's number one. Number two is using a smaller desk for your bigger keyboard as a stand. That's if you're using your bigger keyboard. So that could go to one side. and then on the other side you could have your push and your audio interface. And then on the floor, it's just really tidying the cables up and maybe it's getting rid of an Axe effects or getting rid of the stuff on the floor if you're up for that. I mean, if you use it and you're amazing at just sort of like quickly getting a sound and recording it, then that's okay. But personally, for me, I just wouldn't have like any of that there. I'd be using software only, apart from the Roland that you've got, where you're using that as a MIDI input for the guitar. That's really good. So that's kind of what I would be aiming at. But I think the main problem there with that studio is the speaker placement and where that whole workstation bit is, if that makes sense. I mean, fundamentally, I mean, you've even got a sub bass as well. Do you actually need the sub in that room? Because I remember I used to have a sub and it was just totally impractical. It was just filling the room with like loads of bass, and I could never ever get it tuned right in my room. So it translated well to my mixes. Because you're always dealing with room acoustics. So, I mean, that's why I always use headphones, right? Because like this is the best studio in the world using headphones. I can accurately hear the bass. These are Stephen Slate headphones as well, and so the I can't remember what they are, VSX. So like these have really, it's flat and it's pretty accurate, and with the software, I can completely have these headphones, the frequency response pretty much flat. Yeah. So the sub could go, couldn't it? Yeah, you could get shot of a few things. What about moving the desk, Enzo? Is that a thing? All right, okay. So the other thing, Enzo, is do you use headphones when you're mixing? How would I move the desk? I would move it. So at the minute you're in the corner of the wall with your speakers here, I would either go across to where the tree is, so I'm looking at the tree, or I would go rotate this way and I would look at the swirly pattern picture. But I would have like the desk, it would be like a foot or so away from the wall, simply so I can have the speakers out, so they're not vibrating against the wall. So basically everything would go on, I wish I had a pen, would go onto the swirly pattern picture. And then what I would do is I would just tidy the floor up and lose everything I'm not using. Everything. If you're not using it, like for example, you've got, is that like drums? I mean, basically, if there's anything in there that you haven't used, right, for a while, then I would just put it into timeout and see how you get on without that and look for software equivalents. Because actually, the push, right, the push is just amazing. That's like every instrument. It's like every drum machine, everything. And there's so much you can do in your environment, right? And that's what I'm going to move on to now. So I think what we'll do, Enzo, is because you've been a good sport, right? And you've put your picture up and you've shared it with us, which is brilliant. I really appreciate that. Why don't we do a quick call on Sunday or maybe Thursday evening, either this Thursday evening or Sunday and we can do a half an hour coaching session on your environment and come up with a plan, because that'll be easier, won't it? Because obviously you've only got text here, and I know you don't like the typos and stuff, but we could do that, couldn't we? Yeah. I think this room's, it's the only way to have this room, actually. I think I should have been the other side, because then the guitar headstock's facing out and it's less awkward, but I suppose I'm quite used to it now. Because the other thing is, like, you're twisting around doing this, aren't you? Whereas I could be more like that. Yeah. So if you want a half an hour coaching session, Enzo, we can do that. You gotta have the casual elbow space. Right, so coming back to this. Right, let's do this. Now, what I was thinking, right, is we could just have a look at setting up a typical studio environment, because, like, the thing about environment is it's not just the physical world, is it? It's actually the virtual world as well. So you need to be able to set up some sort of a template, yeah? And that's what we're going to do. Nope. Let's just get my screen. Oh, my backlight's not on, look at that. It's better, isn't it? All right, so you're the best. Tim saw the old setup like 4 years ago on a video call. We can just yeah, my old setup. So that setup was brilliant. Like, I mean, that was like extreme minimal in every way. I mean, I was literally in a isolation room, isolation cupboard with nothing there, no speakers, just headphones. But honestly, that's where most of my dance stuff was kind of produced in there. Having said that, it was in their coffee shops. A couple were done in the living room. Waiting for my daughter when she was at dance class, or any of her education stuff, music lessons. I was just like, just having a laptop and being able to pick it up and do stuff was just brilliant. But then I wasn't playing guitars at the time. All right, so let's have a look at this. So this is my template at the moment. Let's get me in shot there. And fundamentally, what we want to do is delete everything, right? We're going to get rid of everything, almost everything. Let me have a think. Everything's going except right. I'm going to keep my mix bus, because if I don't have that, like, everything will just go kind of wrong. In fact, hold on. Yes, I do need my mix bus, but I'll tell you what, I'll just get rid of all the stuff on the mix bus as well. Right. So the reason I have the mix bus on here is for the streaming. It's so my mic can go out separate from like all of the instruments, so my voice isn't getting affected. That's why I have that there, if that makes sense. So yeah, good morning, Jozilla. All right, so here we go. Beats plus 4. So this is option 1, right? And we're going to imagine that I've probably done a few tracks here, right, with this setup, and I'll take you through a few different scenarios. So what you would have, and it doesn't matter what door you're in, you know, we can flick to this actually because it's less Q-based people and what have you can just see this probably better. So fundamentally, you're going to have drums. We'll have a bass. We'll have mid and then high. And that's it. That's your basic setup for now. Also, channel strip wise, we'll just get rid of these. And I get rid of all of my buses. Sorry, all of my sends. Oh no, my mic is in Ableton. It's still in Ableton. It doesn't need to be, but I need to be able to monitor it. That's the thing. Unless you've got a better way. But like when you're wearing headphones and you can't hear your voice in the headphones, it's really weird. So if I was to not hear the mic, be able to monitor it, I would have to be in a situation where I don't have to wear headphones and everything comes out of the speakers. So, right, okay, so we've got drums. Oh, drums in purple. We've got bass. We'll go for synth wavy colours. We've got our mid-range instrument. Let's stick that in that colour. We've got our highs. There we go. Beautiful, doesn't it? Look at those colours. Right, so the next thing is you pick a drum machine. So simply make a quick choice. Now I'm going to go for Ableton, all right? And for me, all right, there we go. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a drum rack, and then I'm going to go for the McLaughlin and Hutch sample pack and make some quick decisions. So, modern maybe. Having said that, quite like the sound of that, but I'm going to pick leave one for a reason. Oh, portrait mode, very good. Right, so that's my cake, snare. You're going to pick a snare. Oh, animal sounds good. Quick decisions. Don't think about any future stuff. We're just simply grabbing that stuff, right? Quite like that. I'm just going to have that as like a little second snare thing. Claps. Always like that. That's very synth wavy. Cymbals. 808. Need my ride. Crash 1. Crash 2. Open hi-hat. I'll arrange these in a bit. I think Classic. Need that. Alright, and I think that's all of those. So that's our drums anyway. I'll just, we'll get them like this. Don't need any fancy colours yet. So that's the drums done. Bass, pick one bass, right? So you're just going to have one drum kit for now, and then you're going to have one bass. So the bass I always use, which is super cheap and sounds great, is I'm going to use the towel. Just because I know I can quickly make stuff on it. Alright. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get up my favourite sort of bass starting point. Alright. So that's that done. Next up, and for the mid and the highs, I think what we'll do is we'll just go for, in this case, Juno all the way. Okay. Right. Hi there, Johnny Drew. How you doing? So, oh yeah, anybody who's on here, if you're not subscribed, do please subscribe to the channel. Right, okay, so we've got our drums, and what we can do is we can just quickly make a beat, all right? So what we can do is drums, pick a, well, because we're doing synthwave, probably let's just go for 90 BPM. So you can just have, like, in your template, your BPM sort of set up as well, like ready to go. And then we can just start. Oh, it's good, that snare, isn't it? Some hi-hats in there. Let's have a listen. And the other thing you can do is you can start off with a rough drum beat, so that's just basically there, ready to go, and then you can just move the notes about. Okay. That'll do me. So, and then after that, just get a timer. Let's try 5 minutes, and I'll just try and kind of get something going. So first up, and I never know what I'm doing. We'll pick a key. Minor. Let's go C sharp minor maybe. So I'm just doing that because I want to get something going on this base. So that's quite interesting. Duplicate. Just moving stuff about. All right. So, and then this next one. So this is my mid-range. So I think what I'll do here is I might just pop in another sort of melody. Let's see what happens. Just moving stuff about here. All right. Turn it down. Right, so around. And there's little two. And then do a quick answer phrase. Right, and there we go. And that's my 5 minutes and coffee time. So, fundamentally, what I've just done there is what's called a splurge, just making a bit of music, right, without any judgment in my new template. But obviously, after I do this splurge, what you do is then you review your session. And this is how we're going to move our template forward. So basically, what was happening there, I had my basic synth set up, right, but I wasn't totally happy with the sounds that I had. That was the first thing. Second thing is the mix and the levels were all over the place, right? Now, rather than in my first template, rather than addressing those issues, you need some music, don't you, to start messing with sort of levels and the mix. So that was like another thing. So I was having to move stuff about in the process, which was kind of taking me away from writing the music. So, hi Johnny. I'm hoping everybody's a smart user, unless it's a drug, in which case, don't think so. Anybody taking smart here? But no, it's great having you on here, and do subscribe if you like sort of what's going on here. We're talking about studios today, studio environment. So I'm just setting up a basic template. Right, so this is interesting. Some X saying don't forget sidechaining. However, sidechaining hasn't been a problem yet. If it was a problem, then that would be dealt with. But what we're talking about is your first template. So what you need to avoid is, and this isn't aimed at you, Mech, right? Yes, you need sidechaining at some point, but if you don't hear a problem, then there's no point in you doing sidechaining, because what's most important is for you to make music, and from making that music, what actually happens is the problems that you need to address will appear from experience, and that's what we want to do. And eventually, you know, things like sidechaining will become an issue, because you'll be like, right, okay, I need to do this. But the worst case scenario, right, is that you get into this thing is, I need sidechaining because somebody told me sidechaining. I need that, so I need to now research sidechaining. Then you get all stressed about it, and then you don't know what sidechaining is, and then you know what it is, but then you don't know what you're going to use it for because you haven't got any music. So the thing that always comes first is it's always the music. Everything's always about the music. Everything else is like completely secondary, okay? Unless it's like goal setting, you're just like doing sidechaining or something, and yeah. But obviously, I think we're all wanting to make music. So yes, this tune's like not great. It's very, very basic. But let's have a look at quickly, like with my wins and problems, how I can address all of this, okay? So when we look at just this loop here, I'm using drum racks as well, so that's another thing I'm not always totally keen on doing. But anyway, the first thing was the levels, right? So we'll do some leveling, all right? And we'll have a look at these drums. I'll just mute everything else off. So we can just start getting a rough mix, because these are our three main instruments, so we don't have to kind of worry about that for now. Now, what I suggest you do is we'll just get everything into the bus. So everyone's just simply going into the mix bus now, or it should be. Right, mix bus. That's it. Right. Okay. So everyone's going into the mix bus now. And then firstly, what we want to do is just simply have a look at this kick drum. Now, so the first thing is I'll get a utility plugin. So I would go for a utility plugin rather than doing the faders, and there's a reason for that, which I'll tell you in a minute. Okay, so we'll drop a utility on here. And then I'm just going to move this down by about, I always set everything at -6. And that usually gets me there. So there we go. So a sensible level to have your kick, because usually if you have your kick set at minus, so it's peaking, its peak volume is at -12. So here you can see these little lines here that correspond over to where the mix bus is. We want to be having our kick peaking at round about -12. And what that means is as we add other instruments in, we should end up with an overall level on our mix bus at round about -6 dB. And this is important because we need that headroom for when we're mastering. And the reason I'm using the utility plugin is because I like to keep the fader at the top because you have more resolution, all right? So you don't end up with your faders down here. And then literally just by ear, we can just kind of get the levels right. All right, so that's sounding pretty good. And then we can mix everything else in. All right, and there we go. And then basically what we'll do is you just save that as your template. Okay. So next up, so the other part of this was like, obviously I was faffing about with levels. I didn't want to do that. And then I wasn't keen on some of the sounds. So this mid-range, what I have is I actually have a somewhere, Hutch, everything synth. So this is my go-to sort of lead sound and sort of doing chords as well. So basically that's just kind of there ready. The other thing, the reason I use this tel synth as well is rather than going preset surfing, I can just take the one sound and change it there and then. So if I'm not happy with it, and basically by doing that, I can make that sound fit perfectly with the music. Now the high synth, that's not quite cutting it for that Juno, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for my other tel, and I'm just going to get this. I'll swap that out. Oops. The bass. See, that's already sounding better. Alright, so just by doing that there, I've got more separation between those three instruments, and that's basically, you know, a really good basic synthwave thing. You know, you can go off and write, you know, tracks with that. So if we were to do, say, another splurge, we could just kind of get our drums and maybe do something different. Maybe we won't have that. Tell you what, I'll just go. Obviously, that's not mixed in, so that'll get. And maybe this time I'll have some chords, so what I can have. Let's write a nice chord progression. There we go, C sharp minor again. Get this sounding synthwavy. I can't say anything right, there we go. Oh, I want minor. Tell you what, start this again. Got myself mixed up. Right. Okay. All right, next one. So let's just get baseline. All right, so you can see how basically I'm building a basic but consistent sound that's evolving very, very quickly. There's a chart. There it is. Hi, Stelly. Alright, so that's what we've got so far. So, wins, problems, opportunities. For me, by the way, I don't think you look like Kurt Cobain. I think you look like Sean Penn. Right, okay. Thank you, way cooler. Are you subscribed by any chance? Because if you're not, do subscribe. So the next part of this really is, obviously sounds are quite dry and I'm feeling like I need some effects. Now, the way I think about this is what I'm doing is just each one of these instruments is a bit like a band and I'm upgrading each player. So a sort of problem was basically that high synth was sounding a bit dry. Ah, cool. Thank you. Thank you, way cooler. So the next thing I'm going to do is just add some effects, right? So I think Ableton stuff's amazing, by the way. So we'll get a nice delay out. Echoes, very good. It's even got a bit of reverb. So I just like to add a little bit of modulation so that the pitch shifts a little bit. See that? All right, so the other part of my next sort of wins, problems, opportunities was just to do with some basic EQ, so just some separation. So we can also see that some of the faders are moving quite low. So I think at this point, we should put utilities on pretty much everything. I'm just going to drop everything down. Right. I want utilities on all of these. So really, yeah, you should do this on every channel. And it just means you can have your faders all at the top. Okay. And there are a couple of upgrades. You're the champion, Enzo. So the other thing that you could do is start adding an EQ. So let's say you kind of got, to say you got to the mixing phase, right? And there was a couple of things that you wanted to do that you did in the mix that you could actually bring forward into kind of the writing stage, just to keep things sort of, almost sounding produced, I suppose. You can start getting into EQ8, and here's a cool trick actually, so I'm going to do a video on this. So one thing I like to do is set up like an EQ for a lot of my instruments. So usually with mixers, with kicks, there'll be a few points of that EQ, and one will be sort of the sub, that fundamental frequency. I'll always kind of then pull down some frequencies here just to clean it up for the other instruments. Have a little bit there to bring the bite out. Turn some of the hissy top down, and then I might have another so that kind of cleans that up quite nice. And you can kind of leave that set up, because usually I'll use those points for most kicks. They'll have a similar curve. So see, it's sounding way more solid there. Snare. So for the snare, very similar. Just remove all the crap down the bottom. Give the fundamental a bit of a lift. And then usually what you find with analog EQs will be a slight dip after a boost. That's pretty ugly, so that's out. We'll give that snare a bit of a lift at the top. And there we go, that's our snare EQ. And we can just adjust that with a mix. So, same here, like this synth. We can just set up a high pass and a low pass filter. And there we go. Other things you might want to do is start using a bit of glue compression. But I think, let's have a look. Does glue? Might put a bit of too latency. And that is on the drum bus, isn't it? Yeah. There you go. Gets it a bit snappier. Anybody wants a BX limiter True Peak? Very good bit of kit that. Stelly has, I think, a code for it, but you have to go to my Discord to get it. There you go. Or get in contact with them. So that is your virtual template, okay? Your virtual studio environment. I've got a little bit of time for some questions. So you can see like how over a very short period of time, I've kind of evolved this template into something. And obviously what I'm doing here is only, you know, four instruments, Beats plus 4, and we've got, you know, quite an alright sound. I mean, a lot of it's just getting the right sounds together, isn't it? Oh, Enzo, you're the champion. Right, so, any questions? Any questions? I must admit, I'm really enjoying Ableton plugins. They're really good. There's something very liberating about it all that I like. Who thinks I should go Ableton plugins only? I mean, a lot of it is all to do with just getting the right sounds, isn't it? Stelly, you do. All right. Just staying in Ableton is a good... It's an excellent starting point because you've got less decisions, haven't you? You know? Because, I mean, what you've seen here is you've seen me build a channel strip very, very quickly. But as Mech said, here's another improvement. You know, we can have our side chaining now, can't we? So basic side chaining. Don't glue. Let's have a look. I mean, like, this is really rough kind of way to do it, but drums, get our kick through. What is it? The only problem with doing side chaining like this is you don't have any control over the release. So just a quick tip, what I always do is this. So get a MIDI track, dump your MIDI on there, mute off all your parts, and what we're going to do is we'll just get a 909 rim shot. From our samples. Core library's good. That will do. So you've got, this is just mirroring the kick drum, right? Except this wants to be. And then want a really short attack on it. And then just switch it off, right? And over to the bass. And now we'll take our side chain from this rim here, which we'll call side chain. Now I have way more control over the release. There we go. Much cleaner. And then you can just give all of your instruments a little bit of side chain. So that's quite cool to do that. There we go. You can also use an envelope follower on the MIDI without the 909 to do sidechain. Interesting. Yeah, so that's going to be, it has a different sound actually, because that's actually just using volume, isn't it? Envelope. Okay, I'm looking. Envelope. Is it max for live? Envelope follower. No. Extensions. Envelope. Oh no, you got to map it. I'll check that out. Anyway, that's the one, is it? And then I suppose you just map that to the volume. Right. Then you can just map that to a utility. I see. Right. Okay. Cool. Right. So I think that's it from me for today. And thanks, Enzo, for your studio stuff. I hope everybody's enjoyed the music production today. So you just put it on its own. And then what do you do? What's it controlling? Because it's a MIDI control, isn't it? So what parameter does it control? Anyway, this brings me onto something else for the next live as well. So there's some brilliant Max for Live plugins which I'm gonna get out as well for everybody here. So we're gonna work on this template and build it up a bit, and we'll come back to it. All right. Right. So you put it on your ducking. So whatever you're ducking, would that be like the synth, like the volume on the synth, or Septic Max for Live for sequences? Oh, that's cool. All right, guys. So I think we've come to an end. I've just realised what time it is. It's park walk time and video time. So I'm going to video my. I've got one of these, you see. So this is a new camera, and I'm going to basically just video my wins, problems, and opportunities, and pop that up on YouTube. So I'll see you all on Wednesday evening, because I need to film a video tomorrow. And yeah, Wednesday evening is the full-on live with guitar and all of that kind of stuff. All right, guys. See you next time.